Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from justicecrewcut, who says, my male 32 younger brother, male 22, passed away 5 years ago, and his ex-roommate stole his bitcoins afterwards. And this does have an update that came 4 years later. My brother passed away nearly 5 years ago from an overdose, which devastated my family at the time. I knew he was into drugs and continually warned him about it, but he assured me he had it under control. I couldn't really take the high moral ground anyhow, since he knew I'd also indulged in myself in my younger days. Though that wasn't exactly a secret in my family. I was posted overseas when it happened and felt some guilt that if I hadn't been away, I would have been able to prevent him from being influenced by his circle of friends at the time. But ultimately, I realized I was not my brother's keeper. Afterwards, I assisted my parents with putting his belongings into storage to be sorted out at a later date and returned to my job. When my contract ended, I returned home and had the time to sort through some of my brother's things that my parents hadn't looked at yet. Among them was his computer, which I was hoping might have some photos or other things of interest on it. I managed to salvage a few good pictures and video, though most of it was of him hanging out with his friends at the time. It was still good to have a few extra memories of him from back then. It was while I was going through the installed programs I noticed he had Bitcoin software installed. I know he used to buy certain things for himself and his friends online, so it wasn't a surprise to me that he had this. I knew that Bitcoin had gone up in value over the past several years, so part of me hoped he might have had an amount there, but when I ran the Bitcoin program, it said zero balance. I wasn't too surprised at that until I looked at the transaction details. There was regular activity there right up until the week before he passed away, and then nothing after that. Until 2 years ago, when the total balance at the time of 147 Bitcoins was transferred out of it. This made no sense to me, unless someone else had a copy of his account or had hacked them from him somehow. But then I checked the history log on the computer and lo and behold, it had been started up several times on the date the transfer happened. Going back to my parents, I asked them if anyone else had used the computer since they got it back from storage. They remembered that yes, 2 years ago my brother's old roommate looked them up and asked if they still had his computer and could he use it to get a copy of some files to do with their old rental. He had let him use it for a couple of hours and he left afterwards and hadn't heard from him since. I looked him up on social media and from his post history, it seems like he suddenly came into some serious money, judging from the purchases and activities he was involved with at around the same time. So where do I go from here? The evidence strongly points to his having stolen the bitcoins, but what are my options? Do I confront him directly and do I have anything to stand on? My parents went through a lot over the years and it would be good if I could at least give them back something for all their blood, sweat and tears. And I know that it's what my brother would have wanted. Look, I'm not crypto savvy at all. I've only seen things from people like CoffeeZilla and stuff like that. But as far as I'm aware, and I might be totally wrong, shouldn't this be really easy to tell because the transfers all have their own separate IDs between their Bitcoin wallets, etc. So shouldn't they be able to track this down pretty easily, especially with the timings, etc. And these days, there's got to be something like crypto coin lawyers or something along those lines, right? Again, I don't know the full ins and outs of this, but OP edited the post and says, thanks for the advice so far, particularly the suggestion about this to r/Bitcoin for help. I will be driving down to my parents this weekend to check the computer for the Bitcoin information to investigate this further. This community is amazing. I will continue to post updates as they happen. Commenter says, get in contact with a lawyer immediately. 2. Do your parents still have the message where he asked to use the computer? Security footage when he was at your house? Anything is useful here. If you don't have it, see what your lawyer thinks about this idea, something along the lines. Contact him and ask if he used your brother's computer about 2 years ago when he was deceased and make sure it's on paper. 3. Was the computer password protected? 4. Post the address that the coins were sent to. Maybe some Bitcoiners can help try and find out which exchange he had used to cash out. Then we can try and contact the exchange for extra help. Hopefully this guy has sold his bitcoins for an exchange where he was verified with his passport/address, and then I think you'll have a solid case. Edit. Also, you need to act fast. The guy might be reading this subreddit and he might come across this post. Good luck. OP responds saying, I appreciate the quick response, so I'll answer in point form. 1. I'd like to avoid legal if possible due to what my brother was using them for and also the cost. Not ruling it out later though. 2. There was no password set. 3. I will post an update with the address information when I have it. Since it looks likely he did cash it out, I really hope you are right about his having done it somewhere he can be tracked. Commenter says, good luck with legal pursuit of action in this circumstance. There is a reason why Bitcoin is used on the darknet markets. OP says that is my only concern. With this, if we do pursue this legally, I know my brother was using them for less than legal purchases at the time, which could be linked back to the Bitcoins. Commenter says, what are they going to do? Arrest your brother? The worst case scenario would be to seize the Bitcoins, which I doubt would happen. OP gives a mini update the same day and says, just an update. I was sent a PM from a fairly notable individual in this subreddit with an offer to help, which I have accepted based on his history and reputation here. On his advice, I'll be collecting the computer from my parents' place later today, instead of the weekend, so we can jump on this ASAP. Due to this is now being out in the open. He's also using his connections to get a free legal opinion from someone qualified in this area. I can't say much else until I hear back from them, but I'll be sure to provide further details as soon as I'm able. For now, I'd just like to thank the community and r/Bitcoin for all the kind words and advice you've given. It's people like you who restore my faith in humanity after experiencing idiots like my brother's ex-roommate. People were skeptical of unknown Redditors' help, and someone said, trust nobody, especially people who privately send you mails. Regardless of what their reputation is, they might fuck you over. It's happened in the past plenty enough times. Makes me wonder if this person has such a great reputation, why aren't they coming out in the open? So it was 4 years later that OP came in with an update and says 4 years ago I posted about the ex-roommate of my brother who tragically passed away, took advantage of my parents to gain access to his computer after he died and stole his Bitcoin stash, then shares a link. It says I originally posted to the relationship sub but was quickly directed to repost to the Bitcoin sub to see if anyone there could offer any advice. Soon after doing that, I was privately approached by a credible individual from this group with an offer of assistance, which myself and my parents accepted. Through their network of contacts, we received expert technical advice and forensic analysis at absolutely no cost whatsoever, and legal representation that truly understood the issue at hand and was prepared to work on a no-win, no-fee basis. We owe all these people a massive debt of gratitude for what they have been able to achieve for us here, and has finally come to a conclusion in these last few weeks. The analysis of the computer took several weeks before we heard back, but the results were extremely promising. It had identified that while all the bitcoins had indeed been transferred to another wallet, not all the bitcoins in the wallet had been spent. There were still approximately 36 bitcoins remaining in there that had not been touched. Of what had been spent, there were significant trails of evidence, which was used as a starting point of commencing legal action against the individual in question. It has taken time and much of it is under non-disclosure, but what I can confirm is that an agreement was made to withdraw our case against him in return for transferring this remaining balance back to my brother's estate. Yesterday our lawyer let us know that this has now been done. They are handling the technical aspects of this for us, but the upshot is that the cash equivalent of nearly 29 bitcoins will shortly be transferred to my parents. This couldn't have come at a better or more needed time. The past 12 months with COVID-19 has taken a significant toll on them. Their business was up against the wall and they potentially stood to lose everything unless things turned around. So this cash infusion has taken away all that fear and stress they were living under. This entire saga began with the premature death of my brother. It now concludes with him leaving behind a legacy of hope and optimism for our parents. Somewhere up there, I know he is smiling and cheering them on. In the end, you did good, Rafe. And there was comments talking about the Bitcoin's worth at the time, as there's a couple of years back this all happened. As you can see, the mention of COVID-19. People were estimating at the time the remaining bitcoins that were left was worth 1.5 million. And a lot of people were still angry that he got away with, spending Who knows how much this dude spent? Possibly millions. That at least they was able to recover some of it, but holy moly, imagine absolute scumbag. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Our next story comes from Infinite Series 9493 and says, "Am I the arsehole here for not letting my fiance's best friend live with us anymore, leading to the end of our 5-year relationship? Hi, I'm currently going through a breakup with my fiance and I need input from strangers. My friends have been validating a lot of my feelings, but I feel like that could be bias. Some context, I'm 26 male, she is 23 female. We call her Kate. We've been together just under 5 years, engaged for almost 2. I proposed on our anniversary. Anyway, this time last year we moved into a rental property my parents own with her best friend. We call her May, female 27. For the 18 months leading up to this job, I had worked law enforcement. That job 100% made me realize that you can't change the system from within, and made me fully ACAB. ACAB. Google says is an acronym for that stands for All Cops Are Bastards, and it's a political slogan used for those who are opposed to the police. I was injured a few times and also dealt with some close calls and some really heavy things. Even though I knew I should have been talking to a psychologist about these things during my time, I kept neglecting my mental health until I broke down. I got injured again, couldn't stop smoking, and quit the job. I was in denial about my PTSD and kept trying to push past it and get a different job in security. I couldn't do this, and the feeling of failure combined with being terrified of everyone around me outside, I struggled to find the motivation to find another job or do anything. I struggled going to the shops for some time. During this time, me and May were always around each other and butting heads. Shortly after we moved in, we were setting up rooms. I asked her to not touch some 3D printed D&D models that I had made and painted, due to some breaking in transport and me not wanting to risk more damage. She ended up moving all of them while setting up the shelves, and even unboxed ones I didn't want unboxed. I told her I had specifically asked her not to touch them, and it upset me she did. Her response was, I needed to unbox stuff and put it on the shelves before the party. We had a housewarming coming up. I told her she could have done that without touching them. She yelled, they wouldn't have been touched if you had done it yourself. When I talked to my fiancée about this, she took May's side. This established a pattern. May would do something that crossed a boundary, and she would yell at that. I did also do things which crossed her boundaries, and I did try to apologize and explain that I didn't understand that had been an issue, and clear communication would help me understand it in the future. A few months go by, I'm terrified of May. Every time I'm around her, my heart is pounding. I'm looking for weapons. My body is reacting to her as a threat, and I unfortunately responded by being angry. I felt like my fiancé wasn't doing anything to make the house feel welcome to me. I begged her to talk to May, and she said she did, but that I needed to apologize first and show that I can change. Eventually, in January, it reached a point where May would clean a small section of our patio and sit and smoke. We would all sit and smoke together. She would only clean the section she sat. That area was where I sat most of the time when she wasn't around. One week she got angry because I left my stuff in her spot, and a different day I didn't immediately stop smoking and move over for her. I told her it was a communal area and she didn't own that spot. The next day I came home and she was building a couch in that area. I told my fiancé that it seemed like a petty attempt to take ownership of the space. My fiancé dismissed that, but also said that I wouldn't be able to sit on it due to the weight rating of it. I tried to overlook it, but I asked my fiancé to bring up moving it, because at this point I was too scared to talk to May and was avoiding her. My fiancé refused for a while, then did, and said the couch stayed, and started telling me to suck it up. Her actual words. This led to us arguing and me picking up the couch over our heads and moving it to the other side of the table. At this point May said they were moving out. I said it wasn't going to work with us together in the house. My fiancé and May spent the next 6 months just telling me to stop being angry and apologize and that everything was my fault. I felt so ashamed for this entire year. I didn't tell my friends any of this until this past week. I was constantly sent to the bedroom when May was around, though she wasn't there every day. It felt like I wasn't welcome in the house. When I asked when May was moving out, I was told she wasn't, then she was, and this kept happening. I stayed scared of May. And then my fiance began screaming and berating me for not having empathy, for not loving her or caring about her. I yelled too, but I also slowly began to feel hated by her. And as this went on, I just wanted to do anything to keep her happy. I apologized and was yelled at by May. This happened 3 times in a row, so I gave up. I didn't care about May anymore. She destroyed the friendship we had. I felt so unsafe I wanted her out of my life. But I could never ask my fiance to give up her friendship. I just didn't want her in the house. I accused my fiance of having an emotional affair. She denied anything, but also told me May thought she had been in love with Kate, but talked it through with a psychologist and she just loves her like a sister. This struck me as weird, and a lot of my friends are calling it manipulative. But last week we hit a point. Kate had gone off and spent the night where May has been staying, and told me she was staying at 10:30 p.m. She gave May $1,000 recently to fix their car. I finally talked to some friends about everything. They made me feel validated in my fear, my suspicions, and just didn't make me feel crazy anymore. I'd been conflicted with how I felt. I knew I was wrong to be angry, and I was sorry for my actions, and I tried to make up from them. But when I asked for the same, I got yelled at for asking. It felt like I was being told May can act however she wants and Kate will defend her. But if I step one toe out of line, I'll be told off. I felt like a third in my own engagement. Please let me know if you think I am the arsehole or not the arsehole. I will try and provide any additional information if possible. Edit. I just found out that Kate has been lying to me for a few weeks about a mutual friend of ours, one of my best friends. Kate told me that this friend thought I had changed and was no longer the person I was and didn't want me in their life. Due to this, I didn't reach out to them after the break until this morning. I asked how I changed and why they didn't want me as a friend. She then denied not wanting me as a friend, told me that she still loves me and wants me in her life. We've begun making plans to catch up and talk this weekend. This has made me realize that I well and truly have been manipulated and lied to, and that I'm not going crazy and losing everyone and everything. I don't know how long this has been happening, whether it's the full 5 years or just since May has been this entwined within our relationship. Commenter quotes OP saying I felt like a third in my own engagement and then says, yep, not the arsehole. Time to move on and stop supplementing fiancé and May's lifestyles. OP says, honestly, thank you so much for saying this. I started to cry because I felt like I was going mad trying to say everything. This went from me trying to get perspective to letting my feelings out, and I thought it might be incoherent rambling. Another commenter says, not the arsehole. I strongly suggest that you have a witness with you every time you interact with either of them from now on. I guarantee they know exactly how they're triggering your anxiety and likely PTSD, and are doing so intentionally because they know they can easily manipulate you and situations once you're triggered. It genuinely isn't safe for you emotionally to be around them alone. OP replies saying thank you for the advice. I was planning on trying to have a friend around for dividing assets. Commenter says, did you ever get treatment for PTSD? Did Kate keep May around because she felt unsafe because of your untreated mental health issues? OP says, I did get treatment, and in the past 6 months she did start feeling unsafe. I do need to keep going with therapy to deal with my issues. We have lived together most of our relationship without any major issues. Also at one point I was very suicidal. My psychologist told my fiance I should be placed under a 72-hour hold. She didn't want me to go, so I didn't. Someone asks how the bills are split between OP and Kate, and OP says bills are currently mostly 50-50 between me and Kate. May has always paid a lower rent. We agreed $150 before we moved in, and then almost immediately she said she could only pay $100 a week until she got a job. She would then get a job and keep paying $100, and when I said I wasn't going to keep paying a third of her rent, Kate started paying instead. May also never paid more than a quarter of any bill. Whilst in law enforcement, I was covering about 60 to 70% of bills when it was just me and Kate. I was okay with that because I was making close to double what she did. Someone tells OP to get the ring back, and OP says, I took the ring a few days ago and have it with me at my parents'. I'm only staying this week. Someone says OP needs to get clean now after it seems like weed is creating the harm. OP says, I'm getting sober after this week. I realized that myself and I had to quit and was good, but my fiance always had it in the house and the temptation of it was too strong. I know I can be sober and healthy mentally. I just wasn't strong enough then to resist the temptation. Someone says OP needs to find his spine and get this sorted out. OP says I'm 6'8". I've been training to fight for 8 years. I've always been such an intimidating figure that I always try to be calm and go with the flow to avoid being scary. But I do think this led to me having issues trying to express my own needs in a relationship because I'm desperate to not be alone. At some point later, OP comes in with an update and says, so some people ask for an update, and I have a few good and a few bad things to share. Brief recap. My fiancée Kate and I of almost 5 years broke up a month ago after moving into a house with her best friend, May. I was suffering from PTSD and left my job in law enforcement. I'd set some boundaries with May and she kept crossing them. She'd also get angry and yell at me and get in my face, and Kate would always dismiss these outbursts. So to the update. I stayed at my parents' house for a week. After returning, I didn't know if Kate would be there or not. She wasn't. She took the cat and a few items of clothing and all of our sheets and pillows. I reached out asking if she wanted to talk about things and if she was working that Wednesday because we could sit down and discuss who gets what and her moving out. She had threatened to take all the furniture during the breakup, so I wanted to sit down and actually divide the things we'd bought together between us. She said she didn't want to meet, and that she asked for my roster to collect her stuff when I'm not there. Because of her threatening to take the bed and everything else, I said I didn't want her in the house without me and would change the locks. She eventually said she wanted to do it via text, but I told her it should be in person. There are a lot of things in a lot of random places which actually needed to be sorted through. She refused. I then found out a few days later from my brother that she had messaged my parents, telling them that I had turned off all her fish tanks and wasn't letting her in to do anything to them. I was more than happy for her to come over whilst I was here. I just didn't trust her after finding out about a lot of her lies about my friends hating me. My parents called and the four of us spoke. My brother confirmed the tanks were all on and were clean. My parents told me she had hired a moving crew for Tuesday to get all of her stuff. My parents own the house we live in. I put a lock on the bedroom door and changed all the locks in the house. I told her Tuesday didn't work for me, but Wednesday would work. She refused and said she was coming, so I sent her the list of things she wasn't to take, and she insisted on taking the entire bedroom set. I told my manager about what was happening. She knew about the breakup. I broke down at work the next day and told her. She was so understanding and actually helped a lot, and I'm so thankful for her. On Tuesday, they came just before I left for work. I called my brother and he started coming towards the house. I'd moved all of Kate's and May's belongings outside that I could find and move. I had a friend help me with May's bed. My brother arrived after I left and told me that they were inside the house. I told my manager who agreed to let me leave early when the second staff started, which was in 5 hours. My brother planted himself on the sofa and kept an eye on the bedroom and kept me updated. When I arrived, they gutted most of the house of all of their stuff, but also a few of my items. I found more out after it was over, but she took one of my consoles and the cables to my other so I couldn't use it. They didn't get in the bedroom or get the couch at least. I later found out that they stole my cookbooks, the rice and flour and a few other weird things. However, not long after, I decided to try and put myself back out there and just try and have some fun casual dates until I'm ready for something long term. However, I quickly realized it wasn't for me anymore and I wanted something serious. But I met someone and we immediately clicked. We were sending these huge paragraphs, info dumping to each other, and we shared a lot of the same interests and passions. We've gone out a few times now and I really like them, and I really hope this works out well. Taking it slowly though. Commenter immediately replies to OP saying, it doesn't sound like you're taking anything slowly, it sounds like you're trauma bonding or whatever the kids call it. In any case, best of luck with everything, and hope you're feeling okay and getting the help you need. OP says I've trauma bonded with someone before. This isn't it. I've also been seeing a psychologist who is aware of everything. We're working on helping me recognize red flags in relationships, and it is helping. Commenter says I have PTSD, military, and the mind slams are really hard to manage. I understand why you spiraled, as you couldn't properly rationalize the abuse Kate and May were throwing at you, nor could you process it. It became part and parcel of your trauma. Just another layer being added. It does get better, as I hope your psychologist is helping you see, and when others begin to cause problems that start to trigger you, you'll have new tools to stop them short. Take care, and best wishes to you. OP replies saying you actually summed it up perfectly there. I hadn't even thought of it that way. My psychologist has been helping. After the breakup, I did feel a lot of anxiety, but I know I've developed new ones. Thank you so much. Someone says, can OP report Kate and May to the police for stealing and theft? OP says, I talked to a friend who is a cop and said that it shouldn't have been a civil matter since they had no legal way to get inside. But he said that since they made the call, I have to go to court and try and get the stuff back. And I can't afford to deal with legal fees at this point. I was in a more specific aspect of law enforcement. We only dealt with things within a specific region and didn't cover residential situations, so I never handled domestic violence cases or anything to do with breaking and entering. I know the general idea, but I wanted to confirm since he has experience in those areas. Someone said that OP shouldn't have let Kate into the house, and OP says I didn't. The doors were locked, she came in through a window and unlocked everything from the inside. My brother arrived and texted me they were inside. I couldn't stop her retrieving her property. It would be theft, so it was placed in the garage with the exception of boxes I had yet to sort through to gather my belongings from. I told them not to enter the house in person and via message. Commodore says you broke up your engagement a month ago. Perhaps lay off dating and stay single and focus on your mental health and well-being. Opie says my biggest issue was lack of safety in my home. In the past month I have regained that safety. We've been on 3 dates in the past week and a half for a few hours each time. We're both pretty busy and won't see each other for a bit, but we text and call. Not ready for a serious relationship because I need to work on myself and they are understanding of that. I'm also talking with a psychologist who has given me some good tools and mechanisms to recognize any abuse signs. Commoner says, let things go. They're things and can be replaced. May and Kate are absolutely together. You've been a couple this entire time and you've been a cash cow. You survived the drop trauma and abusive relationship. Do yourself a favor. Get yourself a pet. I like cats, but dogs are good too. From the shelter. No, don't go to a breeder. Specifically, get a rescue. Why? It's hard to explain, but there's healing to be had there. Then go and get therapy. Just work on you and get healed and keep us updated. Opie says that's actually my entire plan. I'd replace the console. I plan on going to a shelter soon. I've been rearranging the house. Had too many echoes of them. I would love a dog, but I wouldn't have time with my schedule, so I'm getting a cat because I missed the one we shared and it'd be easier and cheaper. I don't think there'll be any more updates unless she takes me to court. Commodore says please consider getting some professional counseling or you may end up in the same situation as before. If money is an issue, then consider free support groups such as ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. If you haven't been in a war, I suspect your PTSD has come from your childhood. In that case, it's worse than someone who has been in a war because it was abusive for a very long time and inescapable, causing complex PTSD or CPTSD. And males from the situation often go into law enforcement, which makes it even worse. It will take 2 years of serious emotional work to find your true self and live it. So for your sake, no serious relationships until you've done the work. Opie says you're actually the first person to make this type of assertion and be right. I have a lot of childhood trauma and that I'm currently working on with my psychologist. I've had previous PTSD diagnoses, but working with my current one to figure out if CPTSD is more fitting. My psych's main goal is recognition of red flags and how to healthily set and then reinforce my boundaries. I still use a lot of the methods from my previous times in therapy which do help, but I can recognize that I've developed new anxieties and I probably have some triggers that I'm not aware of. And the final commenter says, good luck in your new relationship. Don't let people treat you the way May and Kate did. Most importantly, you rely on your support system when you second guess yourself. Don't let people gaslight you into apologizing. Stay happy out there. And Opie replies one more time saying, honestly, they've already shown me a lot more care and attention. I told them about a book I had been looking for 5 years on our first date. On our second, they told me they found and ordered it for me, which is something Kate would never have done. My psych has helped me recognize toxic patterns to avoid. My friends are helping a lot. And there was a lot of people on the back of this one bigging up OP, saying good on them for moving on, etc. Look after themselves, their mental health, maybe not move on so fast, etc. Other people saying they're picking up missing reasons vibes here. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much once again. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in the spare crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope.